All right. Is it 4 officially? Okay. Yes, we are. Well, it's 4 o'clock. It's my honor to call the Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Eureka to order. May we have a roll call?
Yes. Okay. Roll call. There we go. Commissioner Loring,
Present.
Commissioner Fair,
Present.
Commissioner Herlihy,
Present.
Commissioner Knight, Commissioner Sievertson, Commissioner Smith,
Present.
and Commissioner Summers.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Next item of business is the approval of the minutes, but there are none to approve. Public hearings, continued, none. Public hearings, new, none. Old business, none. So we go to new business, which is a presentation on the Certified Local Government Program. Lisa?
Good evening, Commissioners. This evening, I would like to present some information on the Certified Local Government Program, or CLG, which the city has been a part of since 1999. The CLG program is a partnership among local governments, the State of California Office of Historic Preservation, and the National Park Service, which is responsible for administrating the National Historic Preservation Program. The 1980 amendments to the National Historic Preservation Act provided for the establishment of a CLG to encourage the direct participation of local governments in the identification, evaluation, registration, and preservation of historic properties within their jurisdiction, and promote the integration of local preservation interests and concerns into local planning and decision-making processes. As part of the CLG program, federal grants are awarded annually to qualified local governments in a competitive process to assist with historic preservation programs. In order to receive a grant, the city must submit the CLG annual report and the grant application, both of which are due January 7th, 2024. The city is required to submit an annual report even if we're not going after a grant.
2025?
Excuse me?
The deadline is June 7th, 2024.
2025, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I have 2024? Yeah. 2025 For 2024, it's 2025. The last time we submitted an annual report was for the 2018-19 year. Then I think the pandemic hit and we kind of stopped for a while, and now we're gearing up to restart again. The information required for the annual report includes any newly designated or de-designated properties, a summary of accomplishments, including new projects that have come before HPC, any Mills Act projects, and local landmark designations. We are also required to update the list of commissioners and background information on each commissioner, including their professional discipline, date appointed, date their term ends, resume and statement of qualifications, and attendance records and training. I think we have your resumes on file, I think, with the city clerk, and also your statement of qualifications. So I think we're set there.
I have a question.
Go
If
ahead.
we've changed professions after we started here, do you want an updated resume?
Only if it changes how you, how you're related to historic pres,
Okay.
how the profession is related to historic pres.
Okay.
Part of the requirements include that the city establish an adequate and qualified historic preservation review commission. That includes a minimum membership of 5 individuals, with members having demonstrated interest, competence, or knowledge in historic preservation. with at least 2 commissioner members to be appointed from professional disciplines in history, architecture, architectural history, planning, etc., if possible. However, we may be certified without the minimum number or types of disciplines if we can demonstrate to the satisfaction of the state that we have made a reasonable effort to fill those positions, or that some alternative composition of the commission best meets the needs of the protection of historic properties in the local community. And we believe we have that. Each commission member is required to attend at least one informational or educational meeting, seminar, workshop, or conference per year that pertains directly to the work and function of the commission and would be approvable by the state. To that end, the California Historic Preservation Foundation offers free YouTube videos. So I think what they do is you can have a membership and then you have the most up-to-date ones, but anyone from the general public can access their older ones once they're done. And so you can go in here and click on something of interest and watch it. So in order to meet this requirement for the training for commissioners and also the city, commissioners either choose a video to watch and report on the video in one of the following meetings, or we could choose to watch a video at the end of the meeting as a group, maybe break it into a couple sessions at the end of the meeting so that it's not so long, because I think most of them are about 40 minutes. So if we did 20 minutes at a time, that would also work. And I'm going to place a link to the YouTube videos on the city's website, since there's also a community component to it, and I'll let have it available there for the community to go in. There's a component regarding community training also. So the next questions are there any grants we'd be interested in applying for next year, or any community trainings we'd like to provide? And then,
can you give an
go
example of the kind of grants that we've applied for in the past?
Excuse me?
Can you give us an example of grants that we've applied
There
for
was
in the
one
past?
for the, I don't know if we actually applied for it or started and then didn't, but there was a grant for the inside track. Are you all familiar with the inside track? Years ago, it was a car that was kind of down a railroad car, thank you, that was down on the waterfront, and it had its own little parcel, and they sold like Eureka gifts and other things like that. I think
Yes, that was.
now if you drive by on 101, I think you can see it there.
Moldering.
We also previously used a grant when Bill Hull did the Windows
The
training. That was part of a grant.
Thank you. And then, the housing element has some implementation measures, and I'll have handouts too about what we're required to do. And also, there's historic preservation implementation measures from the 2040 general plan that'll also be in the handout. And you can take them home and review them, and then we could maybe have a discussion in the future about, if anything interests us for a grant.
In the past, the commission has set up a subcommittee to consider grant possibilities and make a recommendation to commission. If there are a couple of commissioners who would like to dive into this question, we can set up a subcommittee. Volunteers?
That would be great.
It would have to come before us. Does it have to go before the council?
I think.
Let's assume that it does.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think all grants go through the council.
Yeah, then the deadline is June 7th, which means that it would have to be prepared at least a month before that, which is, say, beginning of May.
I would say even the April meeting. so that we could have, this, you got to work backwards for the staff report. And if we wanted to do 20, something for 2025.
So the subcommittee would meet to get more information on the grant parameters and then brainstorm ideas. So it's probably a single meeting.
And we think there's a match with it, so maybe we could brainstorm ways to meet the match. And
Studious avoidance.
I'd be happy to, work with you to provide a room where you can meet here at City Hall if you like. Assist you in any other way possible, too.
I see a finger.
I participated in the window restoration symposium with Bill Hull, and it was well attended. It's been a few years. I'm sure there's more windows that can be restored at this point. I think it would be lovely to explore other ideas too, though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it requires grant writing to do, but I run into a lot of customers in my line of work as a carpenter that are looking for ways to offset the cost of their own historic preservation. And of course, I express encouragement for the Mills Act. But, I think developing resources for things beyond that would be a great encouragement for folks that have historic houses or are thinking about buying historic houses. And I don't know that needs to be its own grant-funded program, but that seems to be a need.
I was meeting with staff prior to this on that exact question. And one of the ideas that staff kind of floated was seeing if there's a way to set up a grant program for owners who want to rehab existing window systems, but do not have the resources to do so. So I don't know that that's eligible for a CLG grant, but that is a possibility. Other ideas?
In this line of work as well, we get exposed to things we're not necessarily aware of. Lead paint and asbestos in particular come to mind with my construction company. It might be a good use of a grant to create a set of guides on how to approach lead paint and asbestos safely in a historic preservation context, and also just create more information about how to go about testing these things properly so you know what you're getting involved in.
One of the other things we discussed was the inventory. The local register has, 4,000 structures on it at this point. The Green Book identified another three or so thousand structures that are not on the register. That list was compiled in the 70s, so it's 50 years old at this point. Lots of things have happened. Structures have been demolished, structures have been remodeled, and structures have gotten older. So structures that did not qualify because of their age in 1970 might well qualify for inclusion on the register today. So one of the possible uses of grant funding might be for an update of the register, which is not a trivial task. Though it could possibly be broken down into doable tasks. So that's an idea. Other ideas? All right. One last time. Is there anybody who wishes to work with staff to winnow up through the ideas and come up with a proposal for us to consider formally?
I'd be happy to attempt that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else who wants to stick their toe into this water? All right. Well, we'll start with you, and I'll check with the other two commissioners who are not present to see if they're interested in joining the party. Okay.
That sounds great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh, one other idea, and I'm stealing ideas that I heard from staff today, was the a relatively simple inventory would be signs. There are some historic signs. The one that comes immediately to mind is Partridge's. Inventorying the city's Eureka's signs and determining which ones have historic value would be an interesting project and may have some significant impact because most of those signs are non-conforming with the new sign ordinance. Okay. All right. Anything else on CLG? Yes.
I might just mention too, some other things in our housing element calls for us to update our historic preservation regulations by the end of this housing element cycle, which is 2027. So we have that on the horizon too. And then our general plan implementation programs, there's 12 of them having to do with historic preservation that we're supposed to be working on. That we are going to hand out to you guys too, but those would also be ideas. The first one is updating the inventory. The second one's developing interpretive programs such as street signage and walking tours. Providing training on the historic building code. And then a bunch of ones on like creating guidelines or procedures for things. So that would be another place to look for ideas.
Okay. All right. It sounds like we should probably, at our next meeting, have a conversation about these materials and see if we can dig a little farther into what we should put on our agenda to accomplish. Agreed? Okay. Anything else on CLG?
We just have the handouts here, and included in the handouts, if you can grab one of each, is the last application that we filed. It was 163 pages long, so I just did the first 11 pages to give you an idea of the questions that are asked. I mean, it included the wooden window seminar that we did and all the information from that. So I just kept it to 11 pages.
Thank you. All right. Then if we're done with the CLG report, we move on to directors' reports and communications. Anything under directors' reports?
There are none.
Okay. I should report that I met with staff prior to this meeting. There were two components of that meeting. One was a conversation about a guy who has a problem with his windows. So we were brainstorming ways to assist him. This may or may not come before the commission. The other was basically the conversation we've just had about grant opportunities and about specific tasks that the general plan requires us to address in the next year or two. Okay. Any other reports or communications? If
Just
not,
a reminder, there will be no January meeting since
right. Why?
Huh?
Why?
We do have item for the February hearing though, so
Okay.
we're
All right. Well,
Meeting.
thank you for the opportunity to have a New
Before
Year's
you
party.
adjourn, we still have to have public comment, though there's no
I know.
public.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
I know that in January there's some new laws being passed relating to ADU dwelling units, and them being able to be sold separately as condos. I've been reading about, and so I was wondering if there's any sort of guidelines or requirements if there's separate ownership of an ADU and a historical home, that they'll have to be aware of the same requirements, or has this been addressed, or is there somewhere to find out more?
If I'm understanding your question, the historic pres is with the entire property,
Right.
not just so anything. If they built an ADU and sold it, the historic.
So
we've interpreted it that like even if somebody subdivides,
right.
it goes on the new deeds of the both. Like if you had one parcel that was on the register, you slot split, then the two lots both get on the register. Like,
So they would both be accountable for filing for.
if there was alterations to structures on a property on the register, then they come before you. There are some exceptions for ADUs that are built into our code. That law passed last year, but it relies. It's not. It relies on the local government to
Right.
choose to opt in. I
That's
know
why I'm
there's
asking.
interest with council. I was hoping to see what other jurisdictions did first, so we could copy instead of recreate the wheel. So it's on my list of things to research.
Yeah, it was a kind of, I don't know. It's kind of an odd concept to have a condo on the property and it's separate but not. And then with historic preservation being involved, I could see it being complicated. So I just was wondering.
So for clarity, there is state law which enables the city to follow the process, but the city has not yet adopted the program.
Correct.
Okay. So it can't happen yet.
Correct.
Okay. That's a great report. Other reports of communications? Then we move into the public comment period. Anyone in the virtual audience or in the real audience may address the commission on any matter within our jurisdiction by approaching the microphone. Seeing no one in the room and seeing no one approaching the microphone
There's no one in Zoom.
okay, just city people in Zoom, we will close the public hearing. And we stand adjourned until our February meeting. Thank you all for your time and attendance.